Hey everyone, welcome to Authentic Hustle episode number 10.
Number
Welcome.
10. We made it.
Number 10.
Dan.
Number 10.
Dan.
Just a fun fact for the audience. When we started this show, we originally said, let's just do 10 and see what happens. So here we are at 10.
There we are. Here we are at 10. Welcome everybody. Welcome to this week's episode. If you're watching us, welcome. Today we'd like to introduce our guest, Vic Moschito. Vic, if I butchered your name, I'm sorry. Vic, he's a good friend. I've known him from the GTA areas. Vic has spent 3 decades in the financial services and customer insights. Great guy. We'd love to get into a conversation with him today. Welcome, Vic. Welcome to the show. And as you always know, Kelly Kennedy, the Business Development Podcast host, my good friend. We'll hear a lot of insight from Kelly today. And Colin Harms, our very old, the life advisor and everyone's good friend. So, and Blue Sky Thinker. So you'll hear more from Colin Harms today. And I'm VJ. Welcome to the podcast today or the show today. Looking forward to today's conversation. So where are we getting started with? Should we get started with Kelly yourself?
Yeah, I can absolutely lead us off. How's your mic doing? Can you pull that a little closer for us?
Yeah.
Perfect. We got a bit of an in and out going on with your distance from it.
All right.
Awesome. Well, honestly, guys, I just want to start off today's show by thanking all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for joining me on this journey. We're all in on this together. We're all equal co-hosts, but I definitely didn't want to do a live show alone when I set out to do this. And I couldn't think of a better group of guys to do this with. So I wanted to just thank you, VJ. Thank you, Colin, for joining us on this journey and for being part of this. I've really enjoyed this. And I look forward to doing this show with you guys every single week. It's such a fun place to be. We can be a little bit free with it. We can have fun. We're not in this box like we somewhat are maybe with our individual podcasts. And so I just want to say thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And these last 10 episodes have been a lot of fun.
10. Yeah.
10.
Today, I wanted to chat about LinkedIn. I don't know about you guys. I get a ton of questions every single week with people asking about LinkedIn. They're reaching out. They're saying, we're putting out content. We don't know how much content we should be putting out. We don't know what's good. Most of our posts aren't getting engagement. And so I did some deep digging into this. And actually for this week's show of the Business Development Podcast, I went really deep. But I learned some stuff on it. And I wanted to chat with you guys about it today. And it's funny because the challenge that I think most people are facing isn't that they're not putting out great content, because I'm seeing lots of great content on LinkedIn. But I think it's the way that they're ultimately marketing it. People's problem is not their content. It's actually getting the right amount of eyes on it. It's impressions specifically. And the question that I had today was this: with LinkedIn's average engagement rate sitting at just 4.73% from Rival IQ in 2025, we have to stop blaming content quality and we have to start figuring out how can we reach more people. It's not actually the content. It's the fact that we're not getting our content in front of enough people. And so, I wanted to chat with you guys today. I'll give my answer on things that I've been doing to get my content in front of more people. But I would love to know from both of you. I know, VJ, you market pretty heavily. Colin, you market heavily. How are you getting your content in front of, let's call it 1,000 people? Because it takes 1,000 people to get around 43 reactions. And so if we have to get it in front of that many people to get any type of real engagement, we got to do better at this.
I asked this question to a founder who built his following. He was at the time 30K followers on LinkedIn and Instagram. He had about 8,000 followers. Today, he has over 100,000 followers on Instagram and I believe on LinkedIn. He was on a podcast and I asked him, hey, dude, what's going on? And he said, any content that you put it out, make sure that you like it first. I think we do like it. I mean, that's why we post it, but it also every second matters. I mean, as my brother told me once, if you don't get them in the first 2 seconds, they're gone. They're going to swipe up, right? So you got to get them in the first 2 or 3 seconds and see that it's engaging. There's a hook in the initial few seconds, and then it's engaging. And every second treat it as like a drop of blood, and make sure every second is worth it. then there's a good chance that I think the content quality does matter, whether it's 30 seconds or 30 minutes, doesn't matter. Actually, I think that's what I'm learning. You have to produce it like you're producing a movie for even a 30-second clip. That's why
Yeah. Like I find that my short form video content, actually the short form video content from this show does really well. And they're like 1 minute clips, a minute and a half clips, right? And when I was doing my digging into yesterday's show for the podcast, what I actually found out was if you're an entrepreneur, a CEO, a high level executive, and you are putting out, let's call it short form, 90-second or less content, that content is getting 4 times the engagement of any other content that executives can put out. That's absolutely massive.
Yeah. And if you look at the first ever YouTube video ever produced, it was on YouTube. There is a guy in a zoo in a park. He was looking at an elephant or something. I'm sure you have seen that video. Absolutely no. It's a sweet video. There's absolutely nothing crazy about it. There's no hook or engagement or anything. He's just in a zoo looking at an elephant.
But it was new.
It was new. It's new. I think right now, it's all about the attention industry. That people have options today. They could be on LinkedIn, they could be on Instagram, they could be on so many different TikTok, so many different platforms. So getting their attention it's very difficult. And at the same time, there's a lot of things that we all know. I think consistency and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think if it's a genuine content that connects with the person, what I understood, it's pure marketing. No one likes marketing, actually. If you market a brand, whatever brand it is, people don't seem to be captivated by marketing content as much. Mm-hmm. So what do I get from that 30 seconds? That's what people are after. So I've reduced marketing drastically and try to see if I can offer any value, even if it's 10 seconds or 30 seconds.
Yeah. Colin, what are you doing these days to get your stuff out?
I think more short gives you a longer range, if that makes sense. I love shorts, and so I'm kind of swaying towards that. And I think the reason I love them is more so I don't sit down and say, okay, I'm gonna go scroll here or look for certain things for a half hour or for an hour. If I'm loading a podcast or doing something like that, listening to one, I've allocated that time. But other than that, I think it's just the way I am. It's the squirrel effect, right? Oh, look, right? Look, there's something over there. And if it's long and boring and drawn out, I'm not going to sit there long enough. I'm going to miss the point, right? If the point's 10 minutes in or 15 minutes in, if it's in that, like you said, 30, 60 second mark, right? Whatever that is, I think that's where I am. So I always try to do what attracts me.
Yeah.
Right? If this brought me to the table, well, why wouldn't I do the same thing? So it's a reciprocal. I don't want to use the word reciprocal. That's a bad word right now in the world.
Don't give him any ideas.
If I watch your 45 seconds, you're going to get 45 seconds. Right? Maybe it's a strategy, but I do believe in everything that I do, whether it's marketing or brand recognition. I get it from what attracted me to something. And Sam Walton always said he didn't have to be the smartest guy in the room. He just went into his competitors' stores and looked at what they were doing right and stole the idea.
Yeah.
Right. So why do we need to be different? Everything we're going to see has been invented already. Per se. So I look for what I think is the best, and then I do that.
Well, that's funny, right? Me and you were literally talking about this morning when we just had our check-in call. And I was literally saying there's a million people that could put out real estate information, but there's only one Colin Harms that can do it. There's a million people that could give business development advice, but there's only one Kelly Kennedy out there doing it.
That's right.
So it's kind of like one of those things where you're absolutely right. It's like the information is out there and available, but everybody has their own unique take that they can bring to it that adds value in their own way. The other thing that I think is really important for people to consider when they're creating content, I know there's a lot of people who are putting content out there and it's quite long, it's really wordy, there's lots of information. And what they're thinking is, well, yeah, but I want to make sure that I get all of that relevant information out there to that person. But we have to remember when we're marketing, and content is marketing. I don't care whether you're marketing yourself or whether you're marketing your company. Any content you're putting out is marketing in one way or another, whether it's your personal brand, or your corporate brand, or somewhere in between. Mm-hmm. But you have to remember your audience, because it doesn't matter. And it's so funny. Like, I'll talk to people in coaching when we're talking about creating great websites, or we're talking about building great brochures or marketing material. And I always say, it doesn't actually matter how good the information is inside of your brochures, on your websites, how good that video is, or how good, that carousel or that picture post is. If you can't get people to open it, if you can't get people to engage with it, it's absolutely useless. It doesn't actually matter how great the information is. And so we always have to prioritize engagement first. We have to build things with the idea of, how do we get people to actually want to watch this, actually want to read this article, actually want to engage with this picture or this message? Because once again, your message doesn't matter if nobody will even look at it. And so there's a lot of people right now who are thinking, like, I don't want to put out short form video because I don't think that I can deliver all the value I want to. But my argument would be, what does it matter if you can't get people to watch your 30-minute video?
Yeah, that's 100% right. If you don't have a hook, you're not going to catch anything, right? That's 100%.
Yeah. I mean, like, something when we're putting out content is also like, I mean, like, people crave for brutal authenticity. I think that has been missing in society for a long time. And I think they seem to be gravitated towards brutal authenticity. That's why podcasts, like many platforms, as you know, are like so popular these days. But like, Vic, like, I know you're posting a lot of content on LinkedIn. I've seen a lot of insights, charts, and numbers. Yeah. What's your thoughts on it?
When I think about it, and I think about the posts I do that actually get some traction, they're generally in the area, one, where I have a level of expertise. So my posts on financial services industry generally get about 3 times as much impressions as when I post about a tortoise giving birth from a Philadelphia zoo, right? But I do all of those types of things because, one, I like to think about, like, there's different ways of engaging with your audience and creating an impression of who you are as a person, right? But I post every quarter on bank results, and I've been doing that for 8 years now. And that's one which people are actually now waiting for. I'll get messages, where's the results coming out? And that's a signal that you sometimes, it's not one post on a topic, it's 10 posts on a topic. It's sort of like this podcast here. If you stopped at 1, well, you'd probably get so much of an audience. After 10, you're building an audience. After 100, the hope would be that the audience will be 10 times the size or 100 times the size. And so what are you doing when you're doing your post to actually build on the last post or to create an impression of or a brand about yourself or your organization? And so I do think that there's some value in consistency of what types of messages you do. And so I do try to think about, I could post on lots of things. Is this something that people would expect me to post on? And do they trust me as the poster in terms of my point of view, right? I haven't posted on tariffs. I don't really have that much knowledge on tariffs. So I could give my opinion, but it probably wouldn't get a lot of traction. But if I post about banking and fees and service charges, I always get a much higher engagement level.
Do you think that's because you're considered an expert in the space?
I think it's a combination of, one, a lot of my connections are people in the space. Yeah. I do think that there's a knowledge of who I am in that space as being knowledgeable about the topic. And if people have seen it in the past, they know that I have a generally consistent view around some of these things. And I try to be somewhat balanced in how I present the argument. I'm not so much, I won't bash every organization as being evil. And at the same time, I won't let them off the hook saying that person's a fool for some of that stuff. Yeah. So I do think that there's probably some level of understanding of where I'm going to come from and just like, oh, what's Vic posting about now, right? What's the topic that he's picked up on?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I really like what you said, Vic, about what are we doing to build on our last post, right? I don't think I've ever really thought about that. Right. Because I think of my post as singular. Right. So here's this one. Then it's like, OK, here's this one. And I do post stuff like the video of the tortoise giving birth at the zoo.
Yeah, that's right. And I think some of that is good. Like, I think, every post doesn't have to be, about you and about this item. I do think that, show your expansion, show the breadth of things that you're actually seeing and viewing in the world, right? Like I think that highlights what your interests are and how does it. What I always try to do is how does this tie back to a business? Because I do try to think of LinkedIn is meant to be about business, not about fun and games and my sports team winning. What can I do? So I posted when Ovechkin scored his 894th goal, but I talked about it in terms of perseverance, hard work, and like consistency of actions, things that are business related that achieve a goal, not like yay he scored his big goal and isn't he a great player? That's post that on Instagram or Facebook, but I wouldn't do the same thing on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
I think like one of the biggest challenges that people are having, like the more I dig deep into what makes a post go, right? You have to get more eyes on it. And I think, I don't know how many people out there have, 100,000 followings. I think by the time you have 100,000 people following you, all of your posts will get good engagement simply because you're getting the right amount of impressions, right? If we know that we need 1,000 impressions to get 40 interactions, right? We know for a fact if we have 100,000 people, we're probably going to get that. So you see those people that have those big followings, every time they post something, they get like 100 comments and like 1,000 likes, right? Like it's a big deal, but they also have big followings. I think who I want to speak to today are the people who are like us, right? Like I have a 20,000 following and I worked hard to get there. A lot of people are sitting around anywhere between 5 and 10,000. So we simply just don't have enough people. We don't have enough people checking out our page. So even if we are to post something and it's really incredible, once again, if you only have 5,000 people, if all of them don't engage with it, you're going to get very little engagement on that post. And I think people get really disheartened by that. They create these really great videos or they put out these really great posts and they get like 10 likes or 20 likes, right? We have to start leveraging our social media platforms, utilizing every feature available to help people do that. And I really wanted to leave off my part of today's episode by giving a piece of advice to people who have a small following. Start to leverage LinkedIn groups. LinkedIn has probably one of the best group features of any social media platform, period. And most of those groups you can find, whether you're in, entrepreneurship, leadership, accounting, finance, AI, whatever. There's a million groups for each of these categories. Hop in there and start to join them. And when you post something that starts to get some decent engagement in your main feed, take that post and post it again. Don't repost it, but post it again in the group like a new post. Attach that picture, attach the same message, ask people to engage with it. And I think you're going to start to see your impressions go way, way up because now instead of fighting for 5,000 eyes in your main feed, you have potentially up to millions of eyes in these groups. And, I've leveraged groups to great effect to the point where pretty consistently I'm sitting around 20,000 impressions a week. But I had to work for that. I had to figure out what groups do my messages resonate in. I had to post consistently so that I built trust in there and connections in those groups. And you have to do it regularly, but start to vet those groups. Figure out what groups you post in that you get 500 engagements or 500 impressions, 1,000 impressions in, 10,000 impressions in, and double down on those ones because those are the ones where your message resonates. And remember, the more eyes you can get on your posts, the more people are going to find you interesting, going to want to learn more about you, and you're going to start to get people following your page from your group posts. So start using LinkedIn groups. Don't just post to your main page. You get 20 group posts a week. Use them. Use all of them every week.
Yeah, great point, Kelly. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Advice. I'm going to try that. I haven't been posting in groups as much.
Works well. It works well.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Colin, why don't you start off with your topic? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mine's pretty interesting to me is making the mind shift from waiting for opportunities to creating them. Right. I think there's a big spot in the world for kind of like VJ, you were sitting in the waiting room. Right. Thankfully, you messaged and I saw that Kelly needed to wait you in, but you were waiting for an opportunity.
Yeah. That is fixed. That has been fixed. Will not happen again.
But I look at it, right, is we can wake up every day and we can make opportunities or create them, right? Or we can wait for them, right? And I have a lot of conversations with people where, very early on in the conversation, I can identify that that's what they're doing. They're waiting, or they're asking me certain questions that allude to the fact that they're waiting, right? They want somebody else to pave the path for them, or to make a way for them, or to give them an opportunity. Well, 9 times out of 10, I find for myself, my opportunities happen because I go after them. Right? I try new things, and a lot of times those things come with a cost. And maybe that's why people are apprehensive, right? Things cost money. Apps cost money. I'll be honest, like this week, I was with a friend last week, and he was using a version of GPT chat, and he was doing all these crazy things with a real estate listing. And I kept trying to do them with my app, and it wasn't the same. And I'm like, well, just which app are you on? We went back and forth, right? Finally, 5 days later, I just went to see him, and I said, just give me your phone. And the truth be known, I mean, maybe it's a tiny thing, but I think I signed up for 3 of the wrong apps that cost me $30 each time. That I just had to unsubscribe after paying to get there. But I look at it like, who cares, right? I got the right one. Realistically, within the same day, I actually did a transaction. It was transactional that I made some money because I had the right app. Just in being able to use it and use AI properly, as opposed to trying to make it. I was trying to make it work for me. And I think I needed to realize I need to flip the switch. It's there. Everything is there. And it works really good. It's just I was pushing the wrong buttons. So that was my mindset shift. Was I was waiting for something that wasn't there, right, when I could go and create it. And so now I'm doing that. And then all aspects in my coaching and everything that I do every day, I find that's a bigger and bigger thing every day. When I'm on social media platforms, or I'm reading things or reading books, the self-help world always made me think that, no, we're all out there. Look, we're going to go create opportunities. But in reality, we're not. I think we're stumped and we're held back. And I don't know. What do you guys think of that? Like, are we waiting at the door? Are we knocking? Or are we just opening the door and going through?
No. It reminds me of like one important saying, like in my regional language, it's called Ennampol Valkai, but I'll translate it. What it means is like thoughts becomes action, action becomes like life at some point, right? I mean, just take example for this show. For example, Kelly and I started talking initially, and we had a thought, how can we collaborate, do something different? And now we are already in our 10th show. So, and I think that is powerful. And I think that's how you create opportunities. I think pray for thoughts, good thoughts. I pray for good wisdom. That's what I pray for. I think when you have the right thoughts and you put it in action, that turns it into like, that's grabbing opportunity, I think, in terms of like converting thoughts to action. That's how I see it. I mean, Vic, what are your thoughts on it?
I thought what you raised there, it reminded me of so many different things. And a lot of it I think back to is the fear of failure. And I think we overestimate the cost of that failure, right? Yeah. Like you described it as sort of, oh, I bought a wrong app. And it's like, was that, so you failed technically in that. Ultimately, your cost was like under $100, right? Like the net impact. But for some people, it's sort of like they'll study it, they'll analyze it, they'll obsess over it, and then they won't act on anything because they become paralyzed by the inaction. And the inaction is actually the cost there. And I think about when I used to work in a big corporation, I had a lot of staff, and I would always tell them, don't come back from a meeting and complain to me after the fact. If you're in the meeting, you got to raise your hand if you have something that you want to say and speak out on, and you want to engage. You have to engage with the audience. And even if they disagree with you, that's okay, right? But like don't just sit back here and be frustrated afterwards, right? Because you didn't do anything about it, right? And I'm more than willing to put an idea out there, and I've had many ideas knocked down, right? But you have to have the confidence in failing in some ways, in a lot of different ways. And I think we've lost that will there almost, and it's sort of like you're too high of a punishment on failure.
You know what? If I wish I had a copy where I could grab it. There's a great book, Willing to Fail. It's WTF, Willing to Fail, Brian Scudamore from 1-800 Got Junk. And it's a great book. And 100% it speaks about that. In different levels of making decisions in companies, making decisions with employees, making decisions by yourself. And you're 100% right, inaction is an action.
Yeah.
Right? You're choosing to do nothing and waiting and waiting and waiting. And that's never going to come, right? Like Kelly, what do you think?
I think that being able to make a decision quickly is the biggest advantage that any smaller business has, period. Think about it. A big corporation, they don't get to make decisions quickly. Most big decisions in a corporation, they take months and months and months to enact. Whereas like Colin, you're absolutely right. You can try a new app tomorrow. It could completely change your business. You could have got the right one right off the bat and been like, holy crap, I just put like, let's call it half a day back in my pocket a week because of this thing, right? Or now my marketing is working better or whatever, right? You have advantages as a small business owner, as a smaller entrepreneur, a solopreneur, but they're only there if you're willing to take advantage of them. So if agility is one of your biggest strengths, it means you have to be willing to try and fail things really quickly and do it as much as you can, because you don't know what that next app or that next program or that next thing you add to your business, that value, you don't know what that's going to do for you, but you're never going to find out unless you try. Dude, so for instance, with this show, I actually got an AI image generator a long time ago. I bought it, like it was like $100 a year. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. But this was the use case. It was actually creating the cover art for our Authentic Hustle shows. And like, I shit you not, Colin, I've been sitting on that for like 4 months trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do with it. Same thing with Opus clips. I typically use Riverside, then Canva to create my video clips. But with this show, I needed something that did it faster, because the whole thing with the show was we wanted to save time and do a live show. I still want to produce it, but I want to do it quickly. And so Opus Clips has been making really great clips for us to share from the show really rapidly. Once again, bought it for a different use case, didn't work for that, works amazing for this. Point is, I wouldn't even know if I hadn't tried. It was the fact that I tried those apps, didn't know what to use them for necessarily, but then the use case came and it's an absolute perfect fit. So I don't think we can fail by learning. I think every time we try something, it might not work for your application today, but you might find that it's absolutely perfect for your application tomorrow.
And you know what? Something that just came to me too is I think part of the fear instilled in us is because a lot of people have taught that you have to hit rock bottom or go bankrupt or lose everything or go through a divorce or whatever that may be before you can move upwards. And I don't think that's true. But that's been put in our mind. So people are like, oh, geez, is this the bottom? Is this the bottom? Right? No, you failed you made a decision. It didn't work. Right? Now you stepped forward and forgot about it. Right. And I think most times people remind themselves of the failures over and over and over, and they live in failure, right? A failure mindset. And it's cliche, but it's, well, what happens if it doesn't go right? Well, what happens if it does? Right. Yeah. What happens if it does is a whole lot better. And that's the whole blue sky thinking, right? It's not just a gimmick. It's a mindset, right? It's a blue sky mindset. And like Vic, I like your background, right? Because I like everything blue. My watch is blue. Everything I have, my ring is blue. My watch is blue. But it's a blue sky thing. But I honestly think that, to wrap mine up is just the shift, for waiting for opportunities to creating them. I think it's super important on your list of dailies is starting your day, right? Trying to create opportunities, right? Or for more or less is being willing to fail as well. Right, which that creates opportunities, but not failure in the context of I'm going to hit rock bottom. I'm going to be laying in a curb, and VJ is going to come and carry me back and say it's okay. Right? I think people have a wrong outlook on what failing is. Right?
Yeah, and I think we need to be more overall, just more positive in our outlook.
Yeah, 100%.
Of like you described it as, oh, what if it fails? Well, why don't we just look at it as what if it succeeds, like you said,
100%.
there, right?
100%.
Like why is the mindset about the failure versus the opportunity or the potential there? And I think there's just too much of that orientation towards negative and negative outcomes type of thing versus positive outcomes, right?
Well,
It's things will work out. Maybe not exactly how you like, but something will happen, and it could be very good.
that's right. And I think to wrap up my part is the number one thing we can do to make that happen is celebrate the small successes, right?
Right.
We're all wanting to hold the Stanley Cup or the Super Bowl or whatever that may be, but we're missing the small steps and the small victories along the way. Whatever that may be, every day, every one of us has small successes, and we don't even have to call them that. It's just recognizing that, hey, whatever we did today, or this project, or this, or I made a change in the way I live, right? That's a small success that's moving us forward, as opposed to, I love what you said there, Vic, is concentrating on the failures, right? Let's just reverse that. So anyway, that's my 2 cents for the day.
Love it.
Yeah, love that, Colin. I've posted a few times about it in terms of like what is actually failure. I love it. I mean, this is a quote that stuck with me, and I had to post it. It said like, regret is not failing. Actually, regret is not trying.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have not tried enough, then that's just something you should be regretful about, not about failing. And I think failure is, I mean, for me, at least personally, I've seen failure as the biggest teacher ever. The lessons you get from out of failure, and keep moving, and then you have to keep iterating to move forward. And if you're not failing enough, that means you're not moving forward at all. So I would rather fail more and then like keep moving forward. So
fail forward.
That's
right.
Fail forward. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, it's the time of elections and so many other fun things going on. Like, Vic, is there something? What do you want to talk about? Like, didn't mean to put you on spotlight, but
Sure.
You're up. You're up.
I'm up. Yeah. I was thinking about, a bunch of different topics or areas there, but, given that I'm the Toronto, Ontario, Eastern Central type of person in Canada here, and, I know a number of you guys are out in the Alberta, the Western end of Canada, is what can we do as a country to improve our East-West relations here? It seems like there's too much negative angst that goes on, not necessarily between the people as much as between the political elements there, about Alberta subsidizing the rest of the country, and, the politicians caring about the manufacturing base here in Ontario, but they don't care about the canola farmers who are getting hit with a 100% tariff in Saskatchewan there. But at the same time, we're all Canadians, and what can we do here to sort of try to like improve the way that we sort of think about issues at a Canadian level, not at a regional sectoral level, and that ensuring that the solution is something that benefits all of us, even if it doesn't benefit everybody to the same degree, right?
Yep.
And just being a big country shouldn't be the reason why we act the way we are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What can we do here to get everybody to think about things a little differently? Because the Alberta side has politically, you guys have a much different view of the world. It's not necessarily wrong. Why is it come about that way versus other parts of the country who are much more, I'd say, liberal in their thinking there, but it's creating much more, I guess, negative views on how we should work together on things. And so given that we have some different people here, it'd be interesting to see what your guys' thoughts are as to how this has come about and what we could do to sort of improve it.
I'd love to dive into that. and you know what it is because we live in a country without borders, right? Yeah. Like we just drive straight across.
Sure.
I've always wondered this myself because I find I get frustrated when I see things happen like the East to the West and these conversations. But what I find is, so I'm born and bred in Alberta and a very conservative province. And I think the number one problem lies in, from the first grade on to the 12th grade, regardless, wherever you're born, right? You're planted there and you're indoctrinated there, for case of a better word. And this is what you've been taught, right? You go through and you say, okay, there's left, right, center, and anywhere in between. And I'm speaking for myself here. We only know what we've been taught, right? And unless something's changed or there's a reason for that to change, it's always been like, well, okay, well, that's wrong, or this is wrong, that's correct. This is what we do here. This is how we do it. Like, what's going on in the bigger picture? They've been stealing from us for all these years. Like, give me a freaking break. And then we do that ourselves within our, Alberta's not buying BC wine, I'm like, is this really what we're doing? And then I'm thinking, and then we want to stand up and say, elbows up, we're going to fight the world. Well, good one. We're fighting ourselves. Right. Yeah. So I love your topic. And I've never, ever heard anyone bring that up, is why is the East and the West, they don't like us, and he's a prime minister that doesn't like the West, or, unfortunately words are said, or somebody had said something at some time, either way. Right. Yeah. And then that's what stuck with us, and failure to change, right, our way of thinking is what gets stuck. And that's when I turn the news on, and part of it, even with social media, we live in a censored world, right? We have a censored, like, I censor my own mind, right? You could tell me something and I choose how to censor that information, right? I'm not saying I should have an open mind and just follow anything, right? That could get me in a really bad situation. But I'm smart enough to know, but I want to have an open mind, and I want to listen to how do things work over there. I think, Kelly, we talked about this before.
We did. Yeah.
Where it's just so frustrating to me as a powerful country and a first world country. We have everything at our fingertips. Yet, I'm 52 years old, and only recently, this is embarrassing, did I realize how many resources Alberta has. I'm sitting on top of it, right? But why does it take this type of political environment for this to happen? And even then, we've talked about it on this show, is let's move past the name calling. Let's move past all the theatrics that come along with it, and let's get down to the bones. And I would love to know more about the East. But how the heck do you find it? Because if I ask questions, I'm going to get that personal opinion, or I'm going to get an ideology over how somebody thinks about it. So I love the topic, right? And I'm not a politically motivated person, but I think anybody in North America in the last I don't know how many months is now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I love this topic too. And it's actually something that I'm really passionate about. And I know a lot of people. I've met so many people from the East Coast of Canada. You're absolutely right. It's not the people. I love my East Coasters. I love our Toronto listenership. I've met so many amazing people from Eastern Canada since launching my show. We are the same. You're absolutely right. As Canadians, we are the same. The challenge that we run into, Vic, is that the way that this country was set up, I think maybe that's the better way of putting it. The way that we set this country up, in 1800 is not working for us today in a way that we are all fair across the country. You're absolutely right. I can sit down and I can have a great conversation with someone from Toronto, Quebec, you name it. We're as people, we're absolutely on the same level. But I think as a country, we are not equal. That's the problem. We talk about how do we make this country better? And we essentially are not equal. And we're not equal because the ridings and the amount of seats available are not fair across the country. And I get it. Ontario's got a lot of people. Quebec has a lot of people. But the way we do things out west and the priorities we have out west are different than the priorities at the east. But the way that it's set up, for instance, and I was just doing some quick math here. So British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba all together only represent 108 seats in Parliament. Ontario and Quebec alone represent 200 seats. So it basically, the way that we've set up the country, it doesn't actually matter what half the country votes. It matters what two big provinces in the country vote, and they get to make the decision for everybody. And it's that level of inequality, especially when you pair it with now they can decide how our resources get spent, how much tax we pay, how much transfer payments we pay. And we have almost no say in how that works. That's where the anger and the animosity is coming from. It's from a system that was set up hundreds, a couple hundred years ago that frankly just was never set up for a Canada the way we have it today. And so every time we get a government that isn't about supporting the West, that isn't about helping us do better here, especially when we're sending all of those transfer payments, and then we don't get a say in the next election of how that happens or how we can change that, people here start to feel like what we do doesn't matter. That's the problem you're having, is that I think in Ontario and Quebec and Eastern Canada, you don't see it because you guys have all the votes. And so if you want something to happen for you, it's going to happen for you. But over here, if we want something to happen for us, we need Quebec and Ontario to be on board. And we know for a fact that a lot of the times we can't get them on board. And so we start to just, I think how it is it literally starts to feel Western alienation. It's the right word for it. On this side, we start to feel like nothing we say matters. Our vote doesn't matter. And we start to feel like we have no control over our own autonomy in our own country. And it does start to hurt over time.
I think the biggest thing. Oh, sorry, Vic, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Kelly, you described it in a lot of the manners, which I've sort of thought about it, and just the idea that is the parliamentary democracy and the provinces themselves, are they actually relevant to some of this stuff, and the fact that you do have a misweighting of where support is. Like, I think the Conservatives won the popular vote in 2021. And it translated into 15 seats or so, right?
Yeah.
And worse on it, I think the representation of your ideas was zero almost in terms of what you guys thought would be important for Canadians. And so 35% of Canadians are not having their ideas represented properly, right? And I think that's what creates a lot of the anger in terms of, what are you guys doing here? A lot of us don't believe in what is being created, and there's a lot of us. It's not like we're 5% of the population. It's 35% of the population, and it's just concentrated, and it doesn't get the proper representation, as you described it, in the government.
Yeah. Like if it was me and it was my country and I was in charge, I would change the weighting so that essentially Eastern Canada and Western Canada both have the same amount of seat representation. And I get that would skew things up and it's not necessarily about population. I get it. But you're also dealing with a very large country, and people in Newfoundland think very different than people in, Vancouver, British Columbia or Alberta, right? And we have to think about that and understand that, yes, together we are all Canadians, but the things we want for our provinces, for our areas are different. And so I think if they could make a change, the change that I think would fix this country is making it equal on both sides. Eastern Canada gets the same amount of seats as Western Canada, and that way the vote is actually fair. And if we could do that and show people, you know what, your vote does matter. What you care about does matter, no matter what province, no matter what province or territory you hail from. I think it would make a big difference to unifying this country, but we refuse to do so because I don't know. I'm not sure why.
The benefit doesn't go to that part, the winners right now.
No, and you know what?
Set the rules.
It'll be a little different take on it, but growing up with the transfer payment talk, right, and listening to that as well, is how do we move past that? Because to me, and I'll go down to the minutia of, to me, that's like tariff talk, right? Let's figure out what it really is and how can this benefit the entire country, right? Open it up. And have proper negotiations, however it's done, not like one-sided. Because what's happening now is, I'm an Albertan, but I'm saying, oh, you've been so bad to us for so long. We've just given and given and given and given. Now we're going to take back, right? We're going to get back to what we gave away. But we're a country, right? We're not going over the other border here to another country. I don't know when that. How do you even get that to the table? How do you, when you actually start acting like, I'm going to dumb it down to acting like adults, right? And not name calling like third graders, and actually talking about what's the heart of the matter, the people. That's the heart of the matter. Yeah. The citizens of Canada are the heart of the matter. Somehow that's yet to be talked about, right? 4 months ago, oh, the union's bad. This is bad. It's breaking the country. And now it's like, I'm going to fight for the union. And you know what? Whatever you do, right? It's about the people. It's about the citizens. And if I look at what's going on across the other border there, they're just fighting for the people, right? So they say, right? They're fighting for the citizens of that country. And like Kelly's saying is make it fair, right? All anybody ever wants to do is have fair trade. Right. Yep. And no different there. We want a fair vote. We want a fair voice. That's the part that everybody goes to door knock and tell them how you're going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. But if you were to actually ask them, how are you going to do that? They don't know. right? All they're going to tell you what I'm going to do the opposite of what the other person does. Okay. And that didn't work either. So what's next, right? And I think Kelly knows too, is one of the things in my blue sky thinking and the way my brain works is I always just say hashtag next, right? If I'm not gonna play this game anymore, hashtag next. Let's move on, right? I think we have to move on from the way things have been done for the last 100 years, right? Or the last decade anyway. And then we'll see change. But I have yet to see on the current platforms of what's going on about how that's going to happen.
Well, that's right. And it's actually both sides. Like conservatives aren't doing great, and neither are liberals on this. Like It doesn't matter what side. Nobody is talking about the real challenges and how we could truly unite this country. We can talk about making Canada great again, but how are you going to make Canada great again if you can't unify it first? And I think that's where the messaging needs to be. How do we unify the people of Canada?
Yeah. And you know what? I'll use this. Like, I just don't know why it bothers me so much. Maybe I just have to go next, right? There's some things that I can't move past is if something says MAGA, right? Why do we have to stoop down and say not for sale? Okay. Right. Like, I get it, but is it like we're acting like children here, like very, very basic kindergarten age children. Like to me, that, so let's say I have a kid in middle school or high school and he has a political ambition. He's going to go out there and act like that, right? Because that's all he knows, right?
Yeah.
What do? I say bad things about the other party. Okay. Let's get rid of the tax. Okay. Let's axe the tax. Okay. Let's move on. Like, we've been talking about this for 100 years. Right? But we're acting like it's new. And then, okay, you take it off for a day and now you want a pat on the back. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I should say, you've been a very bad man. Give me my money back. Right? Because you've taken it from me, but there's no solution. Maybe that's it. Like, somebody should run on a solution-based foundation.
Yeah.
Right? But I think we're missing.
I actually love that. You know, I love that analogy that you just kind of used, because it's like, okay, so when you look at what's been happening, especially with the carbon tax, it's like they've been stealing from us for years. And now they're like, oh, we're just not going to steal from you anymore. That's it. Okay. So that's it. So you're going to stop hurting us, and we should be just thanking you and be so happy that you're no longer going to steal our money. Thank you. Like,
start the
for
car.
goodness sake, you want a lollipop?
Start the car. Like, and then you know what? Oh yeah, boom! I'm voting for that. That's fantastic. You took it away for one day, right?
Yeah.
But here's the reality. We all know why I say solution based. X amount of dollars needs to be generated from the taxpayers. It has to come from somewhere. Oh, let's get rid of $34 billion. Now what? You just don't have it?
Yeah.
Right?
100% tariffs.
100, and you know what? And if you give me 100, I'll give you 100. This sounds like if I throw sand in your face, you'll throw sand in my face.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're going backwards. And I honestly think there has to be some really, I don't know how to say it, developed people out there in other countries, like kind of like, what's on today? Look what they're doing today. This is the best episode yet. Like, they are batshit crazy over there.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's not real, and we're living it. Right? Like I said to my kids who are 25 and 23 years old, I said, hey, I don't know, for months I've been saying, you know what? It's just an economic war thing. Thank goodness it's not physical. And now I'm like, I don't even know what this is. I don't know what this is. Right? But fortunately, right, it could be a lot worse. We'll get through it.
I was going to say, Colin, there's still 4 more years.
Okay. I have to tell you this story. This is probably my favorite story for many years. I went to, I had to get a blood test. I'm waiting in the waiting room. Not my favorite place to be. Quite a few people coming in to wait. And this elderly lady comes in with her walker. She flips it around and she sits beside me and she says, so? And I'm like, oh, here it comes. She's like, you like that guy over there or not? I go, like the guy in the waiting room? No, the guy with the orange face. I'm like, I knew what you meant. And I said, you know what? I don't know. I don't know if it's a good conversation to have, but right now, no, I don't like him. And And she said, there's really dumb people in this world. I'm like, yeah, that's for sure. She goes, no. My sister, she's really dumb. I'm like, oh, tell me more. And she says, even if we become the 51st state, it's only for 4 years anyway. I said, okay, that might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. She says, I'm having coffee with my sister, and she said that. And now you know why the decisions are being made the way they are. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. Mic drop. Boom. So if we think about it, that same person, no, I don't know the person, so it doesn't matter. The same person that actually believes that also marks a ballot, right? And then we go, I wonder how this happened. How'd we get here?
Well, and I would argue the opposite too. The opposite too is true, and it's the people that didn't mark a ballot, as well, right? Like,
it's only 4 years.
What do you got for us, bro?
Yeah,
No,
we've left you 6 minutes.
No, I'll wrap it up. I mean, this topic, Colin, I mean, the East-West divide, I mean, anything when we talk about like dividing people or people fighting, it gets me emotional. I'll tell you why, because I was not born in Canada. I was born in India. I grew up there. I think until 28 years old, I was there. What bugs me is like, at least globally, there are 2,000 people or less who are actually telling us how to think, right? Who that is. And there are 8 billion people on the planet, and 8 billion versus 2,000 people. That doesn't make any sense, actually. I'll tell you one personal story, actually, and I'll come back to Canada and US Canada and all of that. I mean, I was born in India, as I mentioned. Like, all my life, I've been told that you're supposed to hate your neighbor, Pakistan. Right? That's what the media tells us all the time. Oh, they're the bad guys. They're the bad guys. I mean, maybe they're the bad guys. I never knew, right? It is very strange. It might be very surprising to hear. I've never met a single Pakistani until I was in the country. I couldn't meet it because even though they were a neighboring country, I've never met them. The first Pakistani I ever met was in US. I think it was 2012 or 2013. I came here and for work, and there was a cab driver who happened to be a Pakistani. Surprisingly, I mean, he said like, "Where are you from?" I thought he was from India. I mean, like, we look similar and things like that. And he's from Pakistan. Oh, then I should be careful with him. I mean, that's like natural instinct, right?
Yeah.
Believe me not. Like, I mean, he was the sweetest person I ever met. Like, he was the very sweetest person. He's a poet. And he had a lot of things. He told me some poems that he has written. Like, it was like a 30-minute cab ride, and he told me an interesting poem. Very sweet, right? Then I was in Canada. I think around 18, we moved here. That's when we took our residency here. And one of the realtors that helped us out, she was from Pakistan. The sweetest lady ever I met, we have met. Like, real sweet. Right? The kind of I think sometimes there are good people everywhere. There are bad people everywhere. That's how I saw it. I mean, it was like mind opening for me, and always I looked at Canada, US as the best of friends all my life. I wish like we could be like Canada and the US. And when US and Canada starts fighting with each other, I just don't like it. I mean, like, it's like, because
nobody likes it. Nobody likes it.
Yeah. Nobody likes it. And the divide between East and the West, I mean, like, there's a lot more common ground that we can find between people, because like what the East actually, I mean, like, it's predominantly like it's the institutional capture. I mean, something I was thinking about the other day when it comes to democracy. It's like democracy is supposed to be is by the people, of the people, for the people, right? That's what democracy is. I think we can agree on all of that. But at the same time, right now, it's not the democracy of the people, but it's a democracy of the institutions, right? If 20 different institutions clap hands together, it means it's the right thing. Not necessarily the case. But in the West End, it's not about the institutional thought. It's more about individual thought and individual freedoms and all of that, right? So that kind of it bugs me. Like, I mean, there's a lot more things that we could agree on, even though there are things that there are certain things are basically I mean, when someone tells us to hate someone else,
yeah.
Believe me, guys. I mean, I can point to so many incidents, Black Lives Matter, then like COVID, and so many other things. Every time, or the Elon fiasco that's happening with Teslas, and every time there's something media is telling us to hate someone, it is propaganda, and it is funded by some groups, right? It's as simple as that. And hate is always funded. Just that's my experience, right? So, or at least most of the case, 8 out of 10 times, hate is most of the time funded. So it's who we get our information from. Where do we get informed from? What educates us? Like Colin, you were talking about that. So yeah, I get emotional when people start fighting. I don't want people to fight. I always feel like Unity's strength, like whether you're from Toronto or Newfoundland or St. John or like Vancouver. I want people to come together, not fight with each other. Because speaking with people on the podcast or otherwise, I think there's a lot more common ground, not only in Canada, globally. I think that's how I always used to think.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of which, I'm just like segueing into a different topic. I have 2 minutes. Something I wanted to talk about is AI and blockchain. I mean, there's a lot of like videos out there, images out there where people are really afraid whether it's a real image or not, whether it's an AI image or not, and how can we really figure out how to differentiate between these two. So AI needs blockchain more than like blockchain needs AI, because any content that you put out there, I mean, here's an idea for anyone. If you want to go out and create a product out of it, if you're having a lot of images and everything, every social media, I think they will eventually implement it that way, that any transaction that you make on social media, it has to be on a public ledger. It's already there as a public ledger, but it's not like confirmed that it is posted by you, right? That's why I think they're coming with like verification marks in LinkedIn and Twitter and so many other places. That is great. But at the same time, how do we know that was you? Right. So I think if it was verified through a public ledger like a blockchain, which has to be verified by you and signed by you. So that's the only way probably to protect AI based content. But if you want to like create a fake content and sign it by yourself, you know that you signed a fake content. So that's like 2 ways to that. So I just wanted to share that. And also like in terms of like innovation, in terms of like blockchain, there are a lot of, there's a lot of like pushback when it comes to blockchain or Bitcoin. I don't really know why. I mean, like, just try this. Try taking $11,000 just across to an airport, right? Just try traveling with $11,000 to US. Yeah. I mean, good luck.
No,
right?
it's
not happening.
Don't.
No, it's not happening. It's not happening. And try sending 100,000 like through your bank. Like, I'm sure like there are going to be 100 questions before you. Where did it come from? What do you have an invoice? And so many other questions. I mean, blockchain. It's not like anti-regulation, but at the same time, I think it's a future. I mean, you have to look at it that way, because like, even if you have to send $1 million or $10 million, it doesn't discriminate like the banks do, right? So that is something I want to leave with. So that's my little topic today.
Yeah, the only reason that it's not prominent is because it's not the adopted form of currency yet, right? So, you made the comment that absolutely there's protections in place to send money. Those protections are in place because a lot of people have gotten screwed, right? Remember, we wouldn't even have those protections if there wasn't a reason to have them, which in my mind would mean that, sure, even if Bitcoin was the dominant form of currency, at some point, somebody would put in more protections of like, here, you can't send $100,000, you can't send $1 million without authorization or this and that. Like, Vic, you're in finance. What would happen, you think? Would we just do the exact same thing over again?
Yeah, I'm completely on side with where you're going, because I would describe it as everybody wants what they describe as frictionless transactions. The friction is there for protection, though. And the moment people start getting scammed, frauded, things go off the rails, all of a sudden the regulations come in, the friction of that transaction goes up, and people who are doing legal transactions in some ways always view it as, why are they monitoring my activity? I'm doing it legally. Well, it's not because of you. It's because of the people who are not doing the stuff there. And that absolutely would be the case. The more it became commonplace, the more protections that would be wrapped around it, the more regulation that would ultimately be wrapped around it.
Yeah.
It takes me to like a wire transfer that I did last year. And I knew where it was going. It wasn't a ton of money. It was like 15,000. And I was trying to do a wire transfer to a company in Ontario. And I kid you not, I went to the bank and the manager came out 3 times and asked me, are you sure that you know where this is going? Are you sure that this is like an authorized, valid company? Like they were being very careful. But it was, it was from a place, I think, of a lot of people get scammed. And they wanted to make absolutely dead sure that if I was sending 15,000 by wire transfer, that it was a reputable company, that there was no risk of me getting scammed out of it. I don't know. Like I'm not confident, VJ, that like even a transition to something like Bitcoin, where there is a ledger, where there is recorded transaction, that there wouldn't still be some level of protections in place, some level of verification, somebody asking you 3 times, to make sure that the person you're sending it to is like an authorized legal company.
We lost.
What
VJ.
do you think?
We lost him.
We lost him.
Oh no. He didn't like my answer.
That's right. He's like, forget it.
He's separated. He's separated. Well,
That's good.
we'll get him back again sometime.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll come back. We'll fix it behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's good. Well, we
Vic,
should. Yeah, sorry, Kelly.
I was going to say, Vic, it was a pleasure having you on today. Thank you for joining us. I hope you had a good time.
This was wonderful. Thank you very much for having me as the guest.
Yeah.
There.
Yes.
Oh, the separatist is back.
I thought.
Yeah, the internet turned off. Sorry.
Anyway, we're just signing off here. VJ, did you have any? VJ, I would like you, if you could, let's use that topic again.
Yeah, you got it.
Maybe you could start next week with that one, and then
Absolutely.
that way we don't squeeze you into 3 minutes.
Yes.
No, be good. No, Vic, thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah.
Thank you. Have
Okay.
a great day, guys.
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
Hustler.
Yeah,
Have a good
cheers.
day.
Bye. Good day. Bye.